Subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts. She could feel the contractions creeping up, faster and more intense with each passing minute. But the only sound in the house was the ticking of the clock. He was gone. Her phone buzzed, but it wasn't him. It was a message from his best friend. "You sure you're okay with him going on this trip?" Her heart pounded in her chest, confusion mingling with panic. Was this some kind of joke? The trip was supposed to be guys only, but she hadn't expected him to leave her, not now, not when their baby was so close to coming into the world. Her body trembled as she placed a hand on her growing belly, the soft thump of her baby reminding her that the clock was ticking in more ways than one. She glanced at the empty space beside her on the bed. His side of the sheets were perfectly untouched, the pillow still warm from the last time he'd been there. That was hours ago. He'd kissed her goodbye, just like any other morning, except there had been something strange about his expression. He had promised to be back before the baby arrived. He promised. Her thoughts were racing as she stumbled across the room to grab her phone. It wasn't just the sudden, inexplicable absence of her husband that terrified her. It was the unspoken tension that had been building for months now, something that neither of them had addressed. She had ignored the signs, trying to convince herself it was just stress, the normal weight of life. But now, in the silence of the house, it felt like the absence of trust was louder than the clock's ticking. Another message from his friend flashed on the screen: "If you need anything, just let me know." She clenched her fists, trying to suppress the wave of frustration that threatened to swallow her. She had been left alone, unprepared, with no one to help her through this. No one except her mother, but even that was a complicated matter. Her mother had her own life, her own worries. Her father hadn't been around for years. She was alone, and the weight of that loneliness had never felt heavier than it did in that moment. With a deep breath, she turned back to the bed. She could feel the pain in her stomach growing more intense, sharp waves of discomfort that seemed to mirror her racing thoughts. Why had he done this? Why had he left her, with their baby, in the most vulnerable moment of her life? She sat down on the edge of the bed and reached for the bottle of water on the nightstand, her hands trembling slightly as she unscrewed the cap. The pain in her abdomen was only getting worse, and she wondered if it was just the anxiety or if the baby was finally coming. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know where he was or why he had left. The days leading up to this moment had felt like a strange blur. She had been excited, nervous, but mostly, she had been filled with hope. Hope that her husband, the man she had known for years, the man she had married in a whirlwind of love and dreams, would be there with her when they welcomed their child into the world. But now, in the quiet chaos of that morning, everything felt uncertain. The text from his friend kept echoing in her mind. "Are you sure you're okay with him going on this trip?" Sure. Of course she wasn't okay. But how could she say that? How could she admit that her trust in him was slowly unraveling, thread by thread? She tried to push the thoughts away. She needed to focus. She couldn't let herself fall apart, not yet. Not with everything at stake. The pain in her stomach spiked, and she gasped, gripping the edge of the bed. Sweat beaded on her forehead, and for a moment, it felt like the world had narrowed down to just her, the baby, and the overwhelming fear of facing this alone. Her phone buzzed again, breaking the momentary silence. This time, it was a call from him. Her heart leaped in her chest, hope sparking for a brief, fleeting second before it crashed back down into the pit of her stomach. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Instead, she stared at the phone screen, watching as his name flashed there. She could feel the tears threatening to spill, but she fought them back. She had been so strong for so long, hadn't she? Hadn't she dealt with all the little moments of tension between them? The half-answered questions, the avoidance, the absence of the man who used to hold her when the world felt too big? But now, with her baby coming, with everything on the line, it felt like the weight of the world was pressing down on her. Suddenly, her phone screen lit up again. This time, it wasn't a text, but a voicemail. She stared at the number, trying to make sense of it, but the moment her finger hovered over the play button, another contraction hit. She winced, squeezing her eyes shut as the pain coursed through her. It was real. The baby was coming, and she was still alone. She closed her eyes, trying to steady her breath, trying to focus on anything other than the overwhelming feeling of abandonment. Was this what she had signed up for? To be a mother, a wife, and yet still feel like she was floating, unanchored? Hadn't they built this life together? Her phone buzzed again. It was him, once more. She hesitated. The sound of his voice, so familiar, made her heart ache. How could he do this? How could he leave her at a time like this? How could he walk away from the promise of a new life, of their future? She couldn't take it anymore. She picked up the phone and, with a shaking hand, pressed play on the voicemail. It was brief. "Hey, I know this is probably a shock, but I needed to clear my head. I'm sorry. I'll explain when I get back. Please don't be mad. I'll be there for you when you need me." The voicemail ended, and for a long moment, she just stared at the phone. He needed to clear his head. He had left her with nothing but a message and the weight of impending labor. How could he? The tears she had been holding back finally spilled over, but it wasn't just the tears of frustration. There was something else. Something deeper. She took a shaky breath, wiping her face with the back of her hand. As she sat there in the quiet of their home, the ticking clock the only sound, she realized something. This wasn't just about him. It was about her. Her strength. Her ability to survive this, no matter what. The contractions came again, stronger now. Her body was telling her something. She was going to have to do this alone. There was no other choice. But as she stood up and made her way to the door, ready to face whatever was coming, a nagging feeling settled in the pit of her stomach. There was something more to his disappearance. Something that wasn't adding up. And she wasn't going to stop until she figured it out. The labor pains hit her again. Stronger this time. She leaned against the doorframe, her hands clutching the cool wood as another wave of pain surged through her. Her breathing became shallow, uneven. This was real. This wasn't some bad dream. The baby was coming. She was alone. And she still had no answers. The silence of the house pressed in on her, suffocating. It felt like everything in her life had suddenly frozen in place. Her husband, the man she had built her future with, was somewhere else, miles away, leaving her to navigate the most terrifying, vulnerable moment of her life by herself. She staggered back to the bed, a cold sweat breaking out across her forehead as the contractions came faster now. The clock on the wall ticked on, mocking her as it kept track of time. Time she couldn't afford to waste. She needed help. She needed him. Where was he? Why had he gone? Her phone lay on the nightstand, the screen still lit up with his name. She stared at it for a moment, the weight of the decision pressing heavily on her chest. Should she call him back? Should she confront him now, in the middle of everything? She didn't even know if she had the strength to argue with him. But she couldn't just let it go, could she? Not now. Not after everything. With trembling fingers, she reached for her phone. She could hear her own breath, ragged and desperate, as she tapped the screen to return his call. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times before he picked up. "Hey," his voice was rough, hesitant, and for a brief second, she felt the old familiarity flood back. But it was quickly replaced by a gut-wrenching sense of betrayal. "I'm in labor," she said, her voice cracking. "I need you here. Why are you not here with me? Why did you leave?" There was a long pause on the other end, the sound of his breathing clear, but strained. "I know," he said finally. "I know, and I'm so sorry. I didn't think it would happen like this. I needed a break, okay? I didn't think you'd go into labor so soon, Anne. So soon? She interrupted, her voice rising. Are you serious right now? You knew this day was coming. We've talked about it for months. And now you're telling me you needed a break? From me? From this baby? You think I needed a break too? I didn't have a choice, I'm doing this alone. His silence was deafening. She could almost hear the regret in his quiet, shallow breaths, but it didn't make her feel any better. Nothing would. I'm sorry, he said again, the words barely audible. I messed up. I thought I needed this. But I'm coming back. I swear, I'm coming back as soon as I can. Just, hold on. Don't do this alone. She felt the tears threaten again, but this time, she didn't let them fall. She was done crying over him. He wasn't going to fix this, not now. She had to do this herself. You think I can just wait around for you? She asked, her voice hoarse. You think that's okay? I don't even know if I can do this on my own. I don't even know if I'm strong enough. But you know what? I'm going to try. Because I have no other choice. She ended the call before he could say anything else, tossing the phone aside with a mix of anger and disbelief. The contractions were coming stronger now. She sank down onto the edge of the bed, her hands gripping the sheets. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She couldn't afford to waste time. The baby was coming. Whether or not her husband was there didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that she had to survive this. She had to make it through, no matter what. The pain was almost unbearable, but she managed to push herself up. She grabbed her bag, the one she had packed for the hospital weeks ago, and dragged herself toward the front door. She couldn't do this alone. She couldn't. As she stepped out onto the porch, the air hit her, cool and sharp. She leaned against the railing, trying to steady herself. The world felt like it was spinning, the overwhelming emotions threatening to consume her. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times, always with him beside her, supporting her. Always with him in their shared dream. The tears finally came, but they didn't make her feel better. They just made everything feel worse. She wiped them away, angry at herself for letting him make her feel this way. Angry at herself for believing in him for so long. The phone buzzed again. It was him. Again. She didn't answer this time. She couldn't. She couldn't keep doing this. Couldn't keep waiting for him to come back and fix everything. He had made his choice. And now, it was her turn to make hers. She had no idea how long she stood there, gripping the porch railing, but the contractions started to slow, and the overwhelming pain faded into a dull ache. She didn't know what she was waiting for, but her body felt like it had reached some kind of limit. Then the phone buzzed again. A new message this time. Hey, it's me, the text read. I'm really sorry for leaving you. I'm on my way back. But before I get there, I need to tell you something. I'm not the man you think I am. Her heart skipped a beat as she read the message again, trying to make sense of the words. What did he mean? What did he need to tell her? Her breath caught in her throat. The pain was returning. Stronger than before. But now, it wasn't just the physical pain. It was the emotional pain too. She didn't know what to believe anymore. She didn't know who he was, or if she even knew him at all. The message from him had said so little but implied so much. What could he possibly need to tell her? Was it something that would change everything? Or was it just another excuse? Another lie to keep her from facing the truth? She couldn't let this go. She couldn't let him off the hook so easily. She needed answers. She needed to know the truth. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. But this time, it wasn't from him. It was from his best friend. She's been trying to reach you. You should call her back. She stared at the screen, her heart pounding in her chest. Who was trying to reach her? What was going on? With shaking hands, she dialed the number. It rang twice before someone picked up. Hello? A woman's voice answered. Who is this? She demanded, her voice shaky but sharp. The voice on the other end hesitated before responding. I'm Emily. I'm his ex. Her stomach dropped, and everything inside her froze. Ex, she echoed, trying to process what she was hearing. Why are you calling me? The silence on the other end seemed to stretch on forever. I need to tell you something, Emily said, her voice trembling. Something that you won't believe. But you need to know, he wasn't just on a trip. He's not coming back. Her heart pounded in her chest as the words from Emily echoed in her mind. He's not coming back. She hadn't known what to expect, but it wasn't this. Her body stiffened, the phone pressed so tightly against her ear that it felt like it might crush her skull. She could barely comprehend what she had just heard. What do you mean he's not coming back? She finally managed to choke out, her voice trembling. Emily sighed, and for a brief moment, all the sounds in the world seemed to fade. There was nothing but the pounding of her own heart, the rush of her blood, and the distant, chilling words that were about to tear through the rest of her life. I know this is hard to hear, Emily said, her voice steady but tinged with something darker, something almost sympathetic. But you need to know the truth. He's not coming back because he's already made his choice. He's with someone else. The air in her lungs seemed to evaporate as her mind grappled with the words. Someone else. The room spun around her, and she found herself leaning against the railing, trying to steady herself. A part of her wanted to scream, to demand more answers, but another part of her, one that she didn't even recognize, felt empty. Hollow. As if everything she had known for the past few years had suddenly dissolved into nothingness. Who is she? She whispered, her voice barely audible. Emily hesitated, and in that pause, 1,000 possibilities ran through her mind. Who could it be? Someone from his past? A colleague? A woman he had met on his trip? Her name is Rachel, Emily said, her voice trembling as though the name itself was a weight on her tongue. I don't know all the details, but he's been seeing her for a while. He's been hiding it from you, but it's not a secret anymore. Her knees buckled, and she sank to the ground, a sudden wave of nausea sweeping over her. The baby inside her seemed to sense the change, and she could feel the thudding of tiny fists against her ribcage, as though trying to reassure her that it was still here, still safe. But the world she had built around her, the life she thought she knew, was cracking and splintering. How do you know all of this? She finally managed to ask, her voice tight. I overheard him talking about her. And I've seen the texts. I didn't want to get involved, but I couldn't let you go through this without knowing the truth. He's been lying to both of you. She could hear the sadness in Emily's voice. The woman had clearly been struggling with her own version of the truth. Maybe she felt guilty for being part of the secret. Or maybe she, too, was tired of living in the shadow of his lies. For a moment, there was a long, painful silence between them. The kind of silence that felt like it stretched across a lifetime. She could hear the faint sound of her own breathing, ragged and uneven, as she tried to process everything. He's been lying to me, for months, she whispered, more to herself than to Emily. Emily's voice softened, almost apologetic. I know. And I'm so sorry you're going through this. But you deserve to know the truth. You deserve to know who he really is. A cold shiver ran down her spine as she tried to piece together the broken fragments of the past few months. The sudden distance between them. The late nights at work. The excuses, the avoidance. The way he had started disappearing more often, leaving her to carry the weight of their future alone. She had known something was wrong. Deep down, she had always known. But she hadn't wanted to face it. She hadn't wanted to confront the man she had married and loved for so long. "I don't know what to do now," she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. "I don't know who I am anymore." Emily's voice came back, firm yet gentle. "You're still the same person you were before all of this. You're strong. You'll get through this. You're not alone." She wasn't sure if she believed her, but Emily's words offered a glimmer of something she desperately needed: hope. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She couldn't break down now. Not yet. She had to keep it together for the baby. For herself. "How do I fix this?" she asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. "Fix it?" Emily's voice wavered. "You don't need to fix anything. You need to focus on yourself. On your baby. Let him deal with his mess. You deserve better than this." The raw truth of Emily's words cut through her like a blade, sharp and clean. You deserve better. She hadn't thought about it that way. She had been so focused on saving the marriage, on fixing the broken pieces, that she had lost sight of what she truly needed: peace. A future. A life built on honesty, not secrets. I guess I'll have to figure that out," she said, trying to push the tears back, trying to find some semblance of control. Emily didn't respond right away. She just let the silence stretch out between them, a quiet kind of understanding that passed between the two women who were now inexplicably connected by a shared pain. "I'll be here for you," Emily said finally. "You don't have to go through this alone." "Thank you," she whispered, even though she wasn't sure what that even meant anymore. The world felt too big, too uncertain. But one thing was clear: she was no longer the woman she had been when she woke up that morning. She had seen the truth. And now, she would have to live with it. As the call ended, she stood up shakily and glanced around the house. The silence was suffocating. The house that had once felt like a home now felt like a stranger's place. The walls seemed to close in on her as she tried to gather her strength. She couldn't let this destroy her. Not now. Not when she had so much to fight for. The pain in her stomach flared again, but this time, it was different. The contractions weren't just physical. They were emotional, a reflection of everything that had been ripped away from her. She gripped the edge of the counter, trying to hold on to something steady. She was still here. Still breathing. Still moving forward. But where was he? Where was the man who had promised to be with her, to stand by her side through everything? The man who had been her best friend, her partner, her love? What had happened to him? And what was she supposed to do now? She wasn't sure how much longer she could stand there, lost in the storm of her thoughts, before the pain hit again. But this time, it wasn't just physical pain. It was the pain of loss. The pain of betrayal. The phone buzzed in her pocket again. She hesitated before reaching for it, her fingers trembling. She wasn't ready to hear his voice again. But she couldn't leave it unanswered either. Not when so many questions remained. She tapped the screen, her heart racing. The message was from him. "I'm sorry. I never meant for it to be like this. I'll explain everything when I get back. I love you." She stared at the words for what felt like an eternity, the knot in her stomach tightening. He loved her. He loved her, but he had abandoned her. He loved her, but he had chosen someone else. And now, after everything, he was going to explain himself? She dropped the phone on the counter and took a deep breath, trying to shake the overwhelming feeling of suffocation. There were no more explanations. No more lies. She had to focus on herself now. On her baby. The rest of it didn't matter anymore. The days following the conversation with Emily felt like a blur. Time seemed to stretch and contract in strange, inexplicable ways. Each moment dragged on, filled with confusion, hurt, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. She couldn't stop replaying the conversation over and over in her mind, like a broken record that refused to stop. "He's with someone else." The words echoed relentlessly in her mind, piercing through every thought, every moment of her day. She had always known that something was off, but hearing it spoken out loud, hearing someone else confirm her deepest fears, had shattered everything she thought she knew about her life. Her mind would wander, back to those last days with him, the ones she now realized had been marked by subtle changes, little cracks in their marriage that she had dismissed. The late nights at work. The unexplained absences. The coldness in his eyes when he came home, as if he were a stranger wearing his face. But she had made excuses for him. She had convinced herself that it was just the stress of the pregnancy, the pressure of the future. But no. It wasn't just that. It had never been just that. And now, she was alone. Alone with a baby she was about to bring into a world she no longer recognized. Her phone buzzed again. She almost didn't want to look at it. The last message from him had been nothing but empty words, promises of explanations that felt hollow. She could still feel the sting of those words, "I'll explain everything when I get back." But how could she trust him now? How could she believe that there was any explanation that could undo the betrayal? But despite herself, she picked up the phone. The message was from a number she didn't recognize, one that had been calling her repeatedly over the past few days. She had ignored the calls, but now she hesitated. With a deep breath, she swiped to open the message. It was from Rachel. "Hi, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to say something. I know the situation is complicated, but I've been thinking a lot about everything. I never intended for this to happen, but now that it has, I don't want to hide anymore. I can't imagine how you must be feeling right now. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I want to explain. Please, just hear me out." She stared at the screen, her heart thundering in her chest. Rachel. His lover. The woman who had torn apart her world without ever knowing her, without ever understanding the love she and her husband had shared. What did Rachel want from her now? To apologize? To explain herself? To do what? What could possibly make any of this better? But the curiosity in her gnawed at her. She wanted to know what kind of person could betray another like this. What had been going through Rachel's mind as she built a life with the man who had promised her everything? The anger, the hurt, the disbelief, they all threatened to overwhelm her. But something kept her from closing the message, something that felt like the last shred of dignity, the last thread of hope she still clung to. She hit reply. "I'm listening." Her fingers shook as she typed, her breath shallow. She wasn't sure what she expected, but she knew she couldn't just keep running from it. She had to face this. She had to hear the truth, no matter how much it hurt. The phone buzzed immediately. Rachel had replied. "Thank you. I'm sorry this is coming to you like this. But you deserve to know the truth. You deserve to know everything. We've been seeing each other for months. I never meant for it to go this far. He told me he wasn't happy with you, that he was waiting for the right time to leave. But I didn't realize the whole situation was so complicated. I never thought he would still care about you the way he does, but I've seen the texts. I've seen how he talks about you." Her stomach twisted. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected Rachel to be so open. Was this honesty? Or was it just another layer of manipulation? She didn't know. She didn't know who to trust anymore. "Do you love him?" she texted back, her fingers trembling. She could feel the weight of the question, knowing how much it mattered. It felt like the final test, whether Rachel's love for him was genuine, or whether it was just another illusion in a world of lies. Rachel's response came quickly, and when she read it, her heart sank even further. "I thought I did. I thought he was the one. But everything is falling apart. He's not the man I thought he was. And honestly, I don't think he knows who he is anymore. I've seen the way he looks at you when he talks about you. He's not over you. I'm not sure what this means for any of us anymore." The words were a mixture of guilt, confusion, and something else, something that sounded almost like regret. She wasn't sure how she was supposed to feel about it. She wasn't sure if it made things better or worse. "Where is he now?" she typed. There was a long pause before Rachel responded. "He's gone. I think he's trying to figure things out. But he doesn't know what he wants. I don't know if he even knows who he is right now. But I know one thing for sure, he still loves you. He's just lost. Please don't take my word for it. Talk to him. But I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to pretend like he hasn't messed up. But I don't think he's ready to lose you." Her heart twisted. He still loved her? The man who had walked away from her when she needed him most? The man who had left her, pregnant, in a world of pain and confusion, was now supposedly still in love with her? It didn't make sense. Nothing made sense anymore. She sank onto the couch, her thoughts spiraling. How could she even think about what Rachel was saying? How could she even begin to understand what was happening? The truth was, she didn't know what to do anymore. The more she learned, the more she realized how little she truly understood. Every step forward seemed to lead to another question, another twist. She thought she had known everything, but now it seemed like she had known nothing at all. And then there was the baby. She placed a hand on her swollen belly, feeling the tiny movements from within. This is what matters, she thought. This baby. This life. She couldn't let it all fall apart. Not when she had so much to fight for. The phone buzzed again, this time from her husband. His name appeared on the screen. She stared at it for a moment, unsure of what to do. She had been waiting for this call. But now that it was here, she wasn't sure she was ready. Her heart ached as she tapped the screen to answer. "Hello?" Her voice sounded foreign to her own ears. "Hey," his voice came through, rough and apologetic. "I know you're angry. And I understand why. But I need to see you. I need to explain. Please." She felt the weight of his words hang in the air, thick and heavy. She wanted to scream at him, tell him he had no right to ask for anything. But instead, she felt a strange calm wash over her. He had been gone. He had left her alone. And yet, here he was, asking for a chance to explain himself. But she knew something now. Something she hadn't understood before. "I don't think I can do this anymore," she said, her voice steady. "I need time. I need space. I can't keep pretending that everything is okay." He was silent for a moment. "I didn't mean for this to happen." "I know," she said softly. "But it happened. And now, we both have to face it." There was another pause, longer this time, and when he spoke again, his voice sounded smaller, as if the weight of his own guilt was finally starting to hit him. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." She took a deep breath, trying to steady her emotions. She had no idea what the future would hold, but she knew one thing: whatever came next, she couldn't let him destroy her. She wouldn't let anyone destroy her. "I need to figure things out," she said quietly. "I'll contact you when I'm ready." And with that, she ended the call. She stood up, the weight of her decision settling in her chest. The world around her felt like it was spinning, but she wasn't falling anymore. She wasn't the woman she had been when she first started this journey. She was stronger now. And whatever happened next, she would face it with the courage she had always known she had inside of her. The days dragged on, each one longer than the last, each one filled with the unbearable weight of decisions yet to be made. Her mind felt like it was constantly in motion, a whirlwind of thoughts. emotions, and half-finished conclusions. It was like she was trapped in the space between two worlds, one where everything had made sense, and the other where nothing did. She was trying to hold on to the remnants of the life she had known, but everything was changing so rapidly, so relentlessly, that it was hard to catch her breath. She had ignored his calls for days now, but there was something about the way he had spoken to her that still lingered in the back of her mind. The remorse in his voice, the desperation. It wasn't enough to make her forgive him, not yet, at least, but it was enough to make her wonder what he wanted to say. What was left to explain? What could he possibly say that would make sense of the lies, the deceit, the betrayal? But still, she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't adding up. Emily's words rang in her ears, "He's not the man you think he is." And the more she thought about it, the more she realized that Emily was right. The man she had married, the one she thought she knew, was not the same man who had left her in her most vulnerable moment, not the same man who had abandoned her when she needed him most. It was late afternoon when the phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from him. "Can we meet? I really need to talk to you. I know I've messed up, but I need you to understand. Please, just give me a chance." She stared at the message, her finger hovering over the screen. Her heart was heavy with all the emotions she had been trying to manage. Anger, hurt, confusion, fear, all of it tangled up inside of her. She wanted to tell him no. She wanted to tell him that she didn't need to hear his excuses, that she didn't want to be part of his mess anymore. But the part of her that still cared, the part of her that still wanted answers, wouldn't let her turn away. Why had he done this? That question had been haunting her for days. She needed to know. She needed to understand how things had gone so wrong. She couldn't move forward without the answers. With a deep breath, she typed back. "Okay. Where?" His response came quickly. "I'll pick you up in an hour. Please, just let me explain." She felt her heart race in her chest, her mind 1,000 miles away from where it needed to be. She couldn't tell if she was afraid or just tired of being in limbo. All she knew was that this conversation would change everything. It would either give her the closure she needed, or it would tear apart whatever was left of the fragile trust she had once placed in him. The hour passed like an eternity. She paced around the house, trying to distract herself from the impending meeting, but nothing could quiet the storm inside her mind. She thought about the baby, how close she was to bringing a new life into the world, how much she needed stability, peace. But the world she had once known had already fractured, and now it seemed impossible to put the pieces back together. When the knock finally came, her heart skipped a beat. She opened the door, and there he was, standing there, looking tired and worn, his eyes red as though he hadn't been sleeping. For a brief moment, she saw the man she had once loved. But then the reality of everything hit her, and that old familiarity felt foreign, almost unbearable. He took a step forward, but she held up a hand. "I'm not sure I'm ready for this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what you want from me." His eyes flickered with a mixture of guilt and something else, something that seemed like hope, like he still thought he could fix things. But she wasn't sure if things could ever be fixed. She wasn't sure if she wanted them to be. "I just need a chance to explain," he said quietly, his voice cracking with emotion. "Please, just hear me out. Then you can decide what you want to do." She hesitated. She was so tired. Tired of the questions, tired of the uncertainty. She was done with the lies, done with the games. But she couldn't help herself. She needed to hear him out. She needed to understand why he had done this. Maybe after that, she could finally move on. "Fine," she said, stepping aside to let him in. "Talk." They sat in the living room, the silence between them thick and uncomfortable. He shifted nervously in his seat, as if he was struggling to find the right words. She stared at him, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She wasn't going to make this easy for him. Not anymore. I don't even know where to start, he said, running a hand through his hair. I've been such an idiot. I know that. And I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need you to know something. I never meant to hurt you. Not like this. His words were coming in a rush, as if he couldn't say them fast enough. She could feel his pain, the raw emotion in his voice. But the deeper she listened, the more she realized that his words were just that, words. And words, no matter how heartfelt, couldn't erase the damage he had caused. I don't even know what happened, he continued. It started out small. Just little things, you know. I started feeling disconnected. I don't know how to explain it. I felt like I was losing myself. And then, when Rachel came into the picture, I didn't know how to stop it. It was like I just got caught up in it. And I thought it would be okay. I thought I could have both things. But I was wrong. Her heart pounded in her chest. You thought you could have both things? Her voice was sharp, cutting through the air. You thought you could have me and her? You thought I wouldn't notice? You thought I wouldn't find out? He flinched at her words, but he didn't look away. I wasn't thinking straight, he said softly. I never meant to hurt you. But I did. And I can't take that back. I wish I could. I wish I could go back and make different choices. But I can't. Her eyes burned with unshed tears, and for a moment, she almost let them fall. Why does it hurt so much? She thought. Why does it still hurt, even though I know it's over? You should have come to me, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You should have told me. You should have been honest with me from the start. But instead, you lied. You left me alone. You chose her over me. And now, I don't even know who you are anymore. He looked away, his face flushed with shame. I know, he said, his voice breaking. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to want me back. I just need you to know that I am so sorry for everything. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. She didn't know what to say. She had spent so many days trying to make sense of everything, trying to find a way to forgive him, trying to hold on to the love they had once shared. But the truth was, she was tired. Tired of waiting for him to change, tired of waiting for him to see her, to love her the way she deserved to be loved. And now, sitting across from him, hearing him apologize, hearing him beg for forgiveness, it wasn't enough. Nothing he said could undo the hurt. Nothing he said could take back the months of betrayal, the lies, the broken promises. She realized, with startling clarity, that she couldn't keep doing this. She couldn't keep putting herself through this cycle of hope and heartbreak. She had to let go. I think we need to end this, she said quietly, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. I can't keep living like this. I can't keep hoping that you'll change. I can't keep waiting for something that isn't coming. He looked at her, his eyes wide with disbelief. What are you saying? I'm saying that it's over, she said, her voice firm. You made your choice. And I have to make mine. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of her words hung between them, suffocating the space. And as the silence stretched on, she realized that for the first time in a long time, she felt at peace. She wasn't running anymore. She wasn't waiting for him to fix things. She was taking control of her life. She was making the hard choice, the painful choice, but it was hers. And that, for the first time in months, felt like freedom. The finality of her words hung in the air, like a cloud, dense and heavy, pressing down on her chest. She had said it. She had finally done it. She had made the hardest choice she would ever make, and yet, it felt right. The uncertainty, the fear of the unknown, had faded into something clearer, something more solid. For the first time in what felt like forever, she was standing on her own, facing the future with strength instead of dread. He sat there, looking at her with a mixture of disbelief and sorrow. His face was pale, his eyes wide, as if he couldn't quite comprehend what had just happened. But she could see it now. The truth had always been there, buried under layers of excuses and false hope, and now that it was out in the open, she couldn't unsee it. He wasn't the man she had once loved. He was someone else. A stranger, a man who had chosen to run instead of face the consequences of his actions. "I'm sorry," he said again, his voice barely a whisper. But it wasn't enough anymore. Words, no matter how sincere, couldn't erase the betrayal. They couldn't undo the damage he had caused. And as much as she had once believed in him, she had to accept that she couldn't change him. She couldn't save him. "I know," she replied, her voice steady, but there was a quiet sorrow in it that she couldn't hide. She wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't hurt, not in the way she had been before. She had moved beyond the point of anger. She had outgrown it, as painful as it had been. "I never wanted to hurt you," he said, his voice cracking, and she could hear the desperation in it. She could see the tears forming in his eyes, the sorrow that mirrored her own. But she didn't flinch. She didn't look away. "You did," she said softly. "But it's okay. I'll be okay." He shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping him, though there was no humor in it. "How can you be okay? How can you just walk away from everything?" "Because I have to," she replied, her voice firm now. "I can't keep living in the shadow of what we were. I can't keep waiting for something that's never going to happen. I've spent too long trying to fix what's broken. I need to let go." There was a long silence. His shoulders slumped, as if the weight of her words had finally landed. She watched him closely, feeling no satisfaction, no triumph. This wasn't about winning. It was about survival. It was about regaining control of her own life, a life that had been stolen from her in small increments, bit by bit, until there was almost nothing left. But now, she had reclaimed it. "I'm sorry," he repeated, as though the words could somehow make everything better. She didn't respond. There was nothing more to say. He was sorry. But that wasn't enough. He stood up slowly, his movements stiff and hesitant. He walked toward the door but paused before leaving, his hand resting on the doorknob. He didn't turn around. "I hope you find peace," he said, his voice barely audible. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. He was gone. And for the first time in a long time, she was free. The silence in the house was overwhelming at first. It felt too quiet, too empty. She sat on the couch for a long time, staring at nothing in particular, her mind racing. She had done it. She had made the choice. But now what? What came next? The future was so uncertain, so vast, and for a moment, it felt like the weight of the world was on her shoulders. But then, the soft flutter inside her belly reminded her of why she couldn't afford to be consumed by fear. She wasn't alone. Not really. She placed a hand on her stomach, feeling the steady rhythm of life growing within her. It was strange, this feeling of having something to hold on to when everything else seemed so fragile. The baby was the only thing that felt certain, the only thing that made sense anymore. She had never been more terrified, and yet, she had never been more determined to move forward. Her phone buzzed, breaking her from her thoughts. It was a message from Emily. "Are you okay? I know this is hard. I'm here for you." She stared at the message for a moment, the words comforting in their simplicity. Emily had become an unexpected ally, someone who had shared her pain and her truth without asking for anything in return. And for that, she was grateful. "I will be," she typed back. "It's over. For good." She hit send and leaned back on the couch, her hands resting on her belly. The future was still unknown, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid to face it. She would rebuild. She would be the mother she had always dreamed of being, the woman she had always wanted to be. She didn't need anyone to complete her. She was complete on her own. The next few weeks were a blur. Every day was a mix of emotions, some days filled with hope, others with doubt. The weight of the past still clung to her, but she was learning to let it go, bit by bit. She had to. For herself, for her baby. She had to stop letting the past define her. She had to start creating a new future. Her friends and family rallied around her, offering support, love, and encouragement. They sent flowers, cards, and well wishes. They reassured her that she wasn't alone. And in those quiet moments, when she let herself be vulnerable, she realized they were right. She had never been truly alone. She had always had the love and support of the people around her. And now, she had herself. As the days passed, her body changed. Her pregnancy progressed, and with each passing week, she felt a little more prepared, a little more capable. She focused on what she could control, the small, simple things. Preparing the nursery, picking out clothes for the baby, reading books about childbirth, and most importantly, taking care of herself. It wasn't easy, but every little step forward felt like a victory. There were still moments of doubt, moments when she would question herself, moments when the fear of what lay ahead crept in. But those moments were fewer now. She had faced the hardest part. The rest would come with time. It was a late afternoon when she felt it, an ache in her lower back, sharp and sudden. She paused, holding her breath, and then it came again. The first real contraction. Her heart raced as she realized what was happening. This was it. Her baby was coming. She grabbed her phone and dialed Emily's number. "It's time," she said, her voice steady but filled with a nervous excitement. "It's really time." "I'm on my way," Emily replied, her voice warm with encouragement. "You're going to do great. I'll be there soon." The contractions came in waves, each one stronger than the last. She moved quickly, gathering her things, making sure everything was ready. She couldn't believe it was finally happening. She couldn't believe that after everything, after all the heartache, the fear, and the uncertainty, this moment had arrived. She was going to be a mother. A single mother, yes. But a mother nonetheless. And that, in itself, was a victory. By the time Emily arrived, she was ready. Ready to face whatever came next. Ready to embrace the unknown, the new chapter that was waiting for her. As they drove to the hospital, her mind was calm, her heart steady. The past no longer held her back. She was moving forward. The labor was long, harder than she had expected, but she didn't give up. She couldn't. Not now. Not when she had come so far. When the baby finally arrived, the first cry was like music, loud, strong, and full of life. She held her baby in her arms, tears streaming down her face, and for the first time in a long time, she felt complete. She didn't need a man to validate her. She didn't need anyone's approval. She was enough. And now, with her baby in her arms, she knew that she had everything she needed to begin a new chapter. This final part brings closure to the protagonist's journey, where she finally embraces her new beginning, ready to face the challenges ahead with courage and hope. The past no longer holds power over her, and she steps into motherhood with strength and resilience. Let me know if you'd like to adjust anything or need any further details.